Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. Couldn't do the show Sunday. I guess Blog Talk has some kind of limit on the number of shows you can do in a week or in a day or something. I haven't quite figured that all out yet. I got a little error message when I tried to schedule the episode. It kind of turned out as kind of a blessing, though, because I really enjoyed taking it easy on Sunday, and I really enjoyed listening to the show that I had done Saturday on Blog Talk. This is very interesting contact. There's a lot of information here. Contact Report 136, several interesting prophecies and points that we've covered so far in Contact 136 include the Hebrews. Story of the Hebrews, which the Meyer material calls the Hebrons, I guess you would say. It says they were formed in ancient times as a kind of mob. They were megalomaniacal, selfish, egotistical. These Hebrons wanted to take up a ruling position above all terrestrial peoples, which is interesting because I've always wondered what the Meyer material had to say about what sometimes people call Zionism, which I've been always kind of neutral. I never knew one way or another that much. I figured there must be something to it, as many people talk about it. It goes on and says the Israelis in the USA commit the worst crimes with their military and their secret services, and in line 127 it reads, but you also know that through the American, Soviet, and Israeli Secret Service assassination attempts, and political murders are committed in very great numbers, and that the same secret services set off political confusions and topple governments and so forth. Well, that's really interesting. We have seen a lot of governments, and I've heard a lot of talk among the alternative community that the United States does that too. We go in and cause revolutions. Unfortunately, it will still remain like this for a long time, as it will also be that the religions still exercise power over the earth, humans, and exploit them and lead them astray. And I played some clips on child abuse in the Catholic Church. I think those are interesting clips too. I really enjoyed some of the clips we played Saturday. It also talks about Reagan and said that Reagan was the president that took actions that could result in World War III. It says a man who will cause everything to align through his upcoming actions, allowing the old prophecies to be fulfilled, from which it will slowly yet surely result that everything will begin to expand on the earth for the preparation of the worldwide war. I want to knock wood. Let's hope that doesn't happen. There will also be a great earthquake in Italy near the Vesuvius volcano. And what the Maya material refers to as the Holy See, which is really the Vatican, will commit great crimes. In line 170 it says the most negative place existing in Italy was unconsciously selected for the residence of the Pope and the city of Rome, where the Vatican resided, from which for almost 2,000 years murder, enslavement, exploitation, deception, and every possible crime spread across the earthly world. And in line 176 it says, thus they do not know that the main activity of the volcano does not lie directly under it, but it lies directly and very deeply beneath the city of Rome. So this Vesuvius volcano, the main magma chamber, is under the city of Rome. And it says there will be a magma eruption, water, gas chambers, tectonic shifts. There will be an earthquake in Italy. Again, this contact occurred in 1980. It says that John Lennon will be assassinated in that year. It talks about the coming ice age. The Maya material predicted this. We're seeing the intensification of that even more now. It says a new cooling time will come over the earth with icy cold weather. The icy cold weather will cause changes in plants and animals. Now, I was on a show Saturday, I think it was. Gosh, everything blurs together. That is scary. With Alfred Weber and the guys from Enemy Within Radio in the United Kingdom, Tommy Blackhat and Tommy. And we talked a little bit about ISIS, and I did a little research, and it kind of relates a little bit to this contact, but I thought I would throw this in the night too. A caliphate is an Islamic state led by a supreme religious and political leader known as a caliph, i.e. a successor to Muhammad. And the religious leaders are called caliphs. The regions they rule are called caliphates. And this ISIS that we're seeing now, their short-term goal is establishing a caliphate. And I think ISIS is really torturing and killing people. And I think in 2013 there were over 7,000 attacks by ISIS. So evidently ISIS is taking over Iraq. So all that time we spent there was for naught. We are dealing with a very extreme kind of religion here where some of the leaders really believe they have the right to rule. Some of these people called caliphs think they're directly descended from Muhammad And the caliphate represents the sovereign state of the Muslim faithful. And this does relate to our study of the universal consciousness and the whole concept of what God is versus what the universal consciousness is. Now, I'm going to have to find our first clip of the evening, and this is a clip I made. Let's hope I can find it. About ISIS. I get talking a little bit too. Okay, here it is. Fighting back against ISIS. This is the battle that's going on in Iraq right now. It is pretty interesting.
So, Peshmerga, it means those who chase towards death, those who run towards death. What nickname would you give the Iraqi army right now?
والله أنا جبان وتسنوك هيجي انتمائي كنا تواتيان نية يا موكو هنجي بيشمرقي كردستان يسلي راي بالرابك كان بيشمرقا من أليد مناعتني عايشة جاني خوي بختك قال بنايا كردستان.
Last week, the extremist militant Sunni group, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, along with other Sunni militia and former Saddam loyalists, violently took over large areas of territory in Iraq, including Mosul, the second largest city. Many have blamed the escalating conflict partially on the increasingly sectarian policies of Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, and fear this could be the start of a devastatingly brutal civil war. Many in the Iraqi army simply fled. Some were caught and executed. The Kurdish forces in the north, known as the Peshmerga, have used the opportunity to expand into so-called disputed areas. Territory Kurds have long felt belonged to them, but the government in Baghdad was hesitant to relinquish. So we're at a refugee camp right now. It's called Hazar Camp. It's in between the road from Mosul to Erbil. And they've been given houses here. KRG is giving them water and food. A lot of them, though, don't know where they're going and don't know if they're going to return. What happened? Why are you in this refugee camp right now?
فشعلته أنا اضطريت أن أخذ عائلتي ورا تقريبا ساعة ونص. اضطريت أخذ عائلتي من هناك جيت هنا من جامع الأربيل أنا وأطفالي خوفا من الضرب. ليلتها إحنا صار بالليل صار خميس على الجمعة. صار رمي قصف هوانات فعل في البيوت وطلعنا بوقتها تقريبا الساعة واحدة بالليل أقل الوحدة ضربوني أنا وأطفالي وعائلتي إلى أن هدت الأمور شوية وفاتت القوات المسلحة ما نعرف شعلوا الهامرات ما هامرات هم بالنسبة للجيش زتوا.
One of the problems of making clips is you don't get the translation, I guess, when people start speaking other languages.
In charge.
المصر إذا تصير بها مقاومة من قبل أي جهة مقاومة من كان من ذولا ولا من الجيش ولا من غير مكان مصير مقابلات الناس الأبرياء المالك ذنب شو ما تخاف إذا تجي سيارة بها مسلحين ورشاشات فوقها ايش تفتهم أنت ترعب لو ما ترعب يعني الأفغاني الإيراني السعودي.
So let me give a little background again what's going on in Iraq and kind of the whole thought process here. The Caliph is the ruler of a particular Muslim state. Following Muhammad's death in 632, the early leaders of the Muslim nations were sometimes called Caliphate, Rasul Allah, the political successors to the messengers of God, referring to Muhammad. So anyway, we're dealing with people here who are under extreme kind of religious delusion. They're not that much different from our television evangelists here in the United States, in my opinion. So the real danger we're facing is ignorance and kind of an outrageousness that some of these religions produce. So let me check back up with our clip here.
We're standing here right now at the last Kurdish Peshmerga checkpoint. Just over my shoulder, a couple hundred yards down the road, is ISIS-occupied Mosul, and they've got a checkpoint there as well. Right now, there's sort of a weird detente in the area, where there haven't been any clashes, but it's definitely a tense situation here. They're checking for car bombs everywhere, and no one really knows how this is going to turn out and when things are going to kick off. The Peshmerga here that we've talked to, they don't seem that concerned. They were just making jokes, pointing over there, laughing and yelling Daesh, Daesh, which is another term for ISIS. You know, they're a very well-trained force. They're disciplined. They're highly skilled, and they don't seem that worried about what's going to happen here. Unlike the Iraqi army, which sort of dropped everything they had and ran away at the first sight of ISIS. Oh yeah, there's a black flag up right there. Can you ask? They don't seem too worried.
نعم بس يعني أكثر أوان أكثر ضلي أوان لحمو لاك وكل نايو جو سياسة هو موكو بوسوني خومان نايو لحمو لاك نعرف خوي دروسك أو لقى على بحكمة العراقي لقى توصل شكتو أقل لتوداتو إما اللي رسمت على الشيء أو موزع.
Anyway, these extreme religions, they create a dullness of the consciousness that is unlike epilepsy. And people experiencing epilepsy often appear well for a few hours or days and then express disordered thoughts, delusional ideas, aggressive behavior. So I think these extreme religions produce a kind of mental illness that is very similar to epilepsy or schizophrenia. These symptoms, sometimes they don't show up for weeks or days, and then suddenly one of these people will have a schizophrenic episode and they'll be shooting someone with a handgun and then saying Allah Akbar later, or God is great. So I think in order to understand the behavior of these people under these extreme forms of Islam or other religions, we may want to study them much like we study mental illness.
لو يجي يعلن التوبة ما لنا علاقة به، يجي يعيش حاله من حاله، كل إشكال مع أي واحد يسأله.
Anyway, I do have another clip which talks a little bit more about ISIS and some of the stuff that's going on over there. And this one's called Inside ISIS and the Iraqi Caliphate.
In the name of Allah and supported by the Quran, chant the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. In a 1-hour documentary, ISIS explain their world. It is a world of horror, and one that they display brazenly. The professional video starts in Fallujah, only 50 kilometers away from the gates of Baghdad. Here, where 10 years ago America fought a bloody battle, masked men with black flags now dominate the streets. When these fighters attack, they don't take prisoners. This assault on an Iraqi military base is documented by their cameras, showing their atrocities in detail. The ISIS video grants anonymity to the offenders, but exhibits victims without mercy. The ISIS offensive troubles this Iraqi family. They have lived in quiet Switzerland since 1996. Today, close relatives back in Iraq are in great danger.
Eine Verwandte von mir hat mir gesagt, also ich habe ihn gefragt, ob immer noch lebt. Hat gesagt, warten auf den Tod ist schlimmer als Tod selber. Das machen sie jetzt.
In a town of the Anbar province, ISIS call former soldiers of the Iraqi army to a mosque. Non-Sunni men are barred. The common enemy is now the mainly Shia government in Baghdad. The men deliver confessions. They repeat what they are told to declare, while the camera is rolling. One by one, the Sunni men approach the microphone. Afterwards, they receive a brotherly kiss. Salahuddin al-Bayati, exiled in Switzerland, is of Shia origin. His wife is Sunni, his mother Kurdish, a jeopardized coexistence in Iraq today.
Wir haben lebenlang im Irak gelebt, wir haben noch nie gehört, welche Sunniten, welche Schiiten, wer mit wem verheiratet, wer ist verboten, gar nichts.
Sie haben die richtige Religion vergessen und jetzt schauen sie im Hass und Rache.
The ISIS documentary presents fighters from all over the world, from Chechnya, from the Gulf region, and from Europe. But old nations mean nothing for this ISIS speaker. His long-term objective is an Islamic empire.
Anyway, their long-term objective evidently is an Islamic empire. So let me bring Solaris on. Solaris, how are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you, Mark?
Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. We were a good team Saturday.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, no, it's good to hear your voice. I'm glad you're doing another show.
Yeah. I think these must be important, and you've really been watching this. I haven't watched any of the beheadings. Have you actually watched a whole beheading?
Well, we have. I've assessed those, and I've asked a few other people who are insiders about that whole process. And, a lot of people say it was staged. It's all just part of the, just a scenery. Basically, it's a setup, false flag type scenario. And then other people say it could be legit. I can't say yay or nay, quite honestly. I don't think these guys are as powerful as everybody's trying to portray them as, just my own personal assessment of them. I think they're psychotic. They're insane. They do grotesque things, and they go for the shock factor, and the shock factor would be to be as disgusting and grotesque as possible when they're assassinating a target. But you know what? That's an amateur, because real professionals don't waste time torturing. Amateurs do. So when you have real good, people who know how to assassinate remotely, or they don't waste time like that. So to me, I think they're a bunch of amateurs that are crying for attention. I'll tell you what I really am concerned about, Mark, is the fact that we have our country and UK. Well, you want to call her a queen? I don't call her a queen much, but literally they're encouraging this kind of negative behavior by encouraging the Muslims and their agenda. And this is inexcusable and unacceptable, and obviously we will have to counter this as a white race.
Well, that's interesting perspective. Do you think these people were actually killed? I mean, I haven't even seen a video. Are they gruesome?
They don't look, I'm really kind of like, nothing really bothers me. I hate to say it, but the more grotesque, the more I'm just like, whatever. I think it's because we've been calibrated through Hollywood to see all sorts of horror films. But the bottom line is it doesn't affect me psychologically in any form or design. It might for some people, but I really can't guarantee that those are legitimate assassins, to me anyway. Yeah. I've heard two sides of the coin. I've heard two different scenarios and two different stories. So, and I've talked to some other people, who seem to think they might be legit by their own sources over there. So, hope that answered your question a little bit.
So you think this is somewhat of a race war?
Oh, absolutely it is. Well, they're using the religion as an excuse, but the bottom line is there's an extermination going on, and what I'm seeing is that not only are Christians being targeted, but anybody who doesn't comply with their version of what they believe is going to be eliminated. There's definitely a race war in the United States going on. There's definitely an attack against the white people here in the United States. You've got more and more people infiltrating who are foreigners in the United States to such an extent that people who are white really don't have any sanctuary, and they're not being supported. And this is not by mistake. Okay, this is an agenda.
I'm going to have a guest on, Frosty Woolridge, who does.
He's great.
Have you heard him?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. He's awesome. Yeah.
He's an expert on population, and there is I'm just losing the name of the country. It's the country that's right adjacent to India, Nepal, I think. And is it Nepal? No, I'll have to look it up. And now I feel really bad. But anyway, he was saying when he was in college, that country had a population of about something like 80 million or something like. It's only as big as Idaho. But now they have a population of like 150 million. And he says it's just totally I mean, he says it's horrible. I mean, it's just ghastly to live there because there's just so many people. And he's concerned that since our southern border is open, wide open, we're just going to have these people streaming in. And I think he said something like, man, I mean, I just heard this show today. 400 cars a year are added to the freeways of California, something like that. Unbelievable how many people are streaming into California right now, and they don't have enough water for the people they have there.
Right, yeah.
So,
well, you know what it is, Mark? They're turning it into a third world country. They have taken the United States of America, and out of their own jealousy and a lot of inside Trojan horses, have literally destroyed America to a third world country, and they're doing it by allowing these illegals to come through and all these immigrants who literally, you know, you have to profile these people. You can't just let everyone and their mother in the United States. And if that sounds harsh, that's really too bad. But the bottom line is you want people who are going to contribute something and not have a criminal background. And we're not getting that. We're getting everyone and their mother who's literally almost a terrorist to connect in. And this is done by design, Mark. Bottom line.
I know it is.
It's very frustrating, I'm telling you, to watch it. And you wonder, as an American whose ancestors have fought for this land and country, to what degree is anybody going to make a move on the chessboard in our favor? I mean, we've got generals out there who refuse to make a move. We have generals out there who refuse to contact D.C. and say, look, have him stand down. He's put the American people in harm's way. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We have to remove those people in office right now to actually restore America, because we are in really bad shape right now. Now we have the biowarfare. Now we've got the Ebola virus, which is engineered and patented, that we have in the United States. They're going to create all these false flags and false scenarios. Mark, I can tell you point blank they will.
Wow.
You can see it. You can see it playing out. I mean, this isn't even me in a fear mode. I have no fear. I'm having assessment mode. I've profiled what they're doing, and I'm well aware of what their agenda is. And anybody who doesn't see it is watching too much TV.
Another thing Frosty was talking about was China today. I was listening to him. It was a pre-recorded show he had done probably a year ago or so. And he travels the world, and he rides his bike everywhere. That's his thing, you know. He travels around the world on his bike. And he said in China, the overpopulation is so bad that sewage just runs in their rivers, and all of the rivers. He said the air pollution is so horrific. It's just so terrible. Anyway, he explained it in such a way that made me think those people in China are almost forced to go into war, to go to somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
He said because people have let this go, that he calls them the four horsemen are going to run now, which is disease and warfare and famine and whatnot.
Like famine, war, and death, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what a sobering world. You know, what a sobering bit of information we got here.
It's very disturbing. I tell you, for me, I wish I had a portal to access to get out of here right now, because I would definitely bilocate off world. I don't want to be here for this at all. I can see what's going on. I can see the fact. I'm really, really sad, Mark, that our country is in shambles right now. We've got such dysfunctional people in D.C. and Congress that it's embarrassing.
I know. It is. Let me play a little bit more of the end of this clip, and then I'll take a short music break, and then I'll bring us back in on Contact Report 136. Here we go.
Few photographs. The 43-year-old who clashed with bin Laden's heirs in Al-Qaeda.
Al-Baghdadi's vision for the way forward in order to bring about the caliphate someday differs significantly from bin Laden's direct successor. I think he actually is the visionary for ISIS, who is articulating a way forward to apply this military force in order to create an Islamic State that tears down the border between Iraq and Syria.
In her Swiss exile, Iman al-Sharifi worries about her family in Iraq. Many Iraqis living abroad now struggle to get news from relatives, but she manages to reach her brother Mahuri in an Iraqi barracks.
تقريبا يعني بتقطع بالأربعين كيلو وبخمسين شيء صعبات يجي بس مع موصل هذه موصل يعني موصل صوب التكبير وغيره.
The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Whether they will achieve their goals is uncertain. In their attempts, however, ISIS are set to bring chaos to the whole region.
Anyway, folks, I think that's the end of that clip. Well, this is an exciting show. Boy, time is going really, really fast here. I think I'm going to take a little break, not too long, play a little music. We'll take about a 2.5 minute break, and we'll be right back on. This is Ohio Exopolitics. My name is Mark Snyder. We've got Solaris Blue Raven on the line, and we'll be right back, folks. Just take a little deep breath, a little relax, and we'll get right back to it. All of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. I've got Solaris Blue Raven on the line. We are talking about Contact Report 136, and it so ironically overlaps with what's happening today. And I want to remind everybody that Solaris has a show tomorrow night on Dark Matter Radio. And I want to give Solaris an opportunity just to plug a little bit. Go ahead, Solaris.
Oh, thanks, Mark. But it's actually called Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network, and it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I actually am having an archive. It's going to be a repeat show because I'm doing a live interview with Brett Holland on his show at Revolution Radio. I think it's Night Fright or whatever it is. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a live interview with him. But, yeah, please tune in, folks. And, yeah.
That's great. So your live interview is on Revolution Radio at what time? 7?
It will be tomorrow, I believe. His is at I better check the schedule. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
I'll better double check it, but it's definitely on Studio B, so I'll look it up.
Studio B, okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you want me to read this that you sent me through the Skype? This is
If you
really...
want to, I just wanted to point this. Yeah, it's an article that I was looking at today. So yeah, feel free to. That's just a little clip of it. Read whatever you feel guided to. Yeah.
Obama has prepared for months to dump hundreds of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees on American cities, just like our new illegal alien neighbors from our southern border. 200,000 to 250,000 refugees from Islamic countries to be sent to the U.S. Social Services in Ohio. Oh boy, I guess I'm not going to escape. Social Services in Ohio were also preparing for a flood of refugees from Syria and Iraq later this year, according to the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Cleveland, Akron, and Columbus. Mm-hmm. I'm not that far from Columbus. I work in Columbus. Columbus have been hotspots in the past for Muslim refugees coming from the Middle East. Wow, we're living in
a big article.
Dramatic times. And this is from universalfreepress.com.
Mm-hmm.
How did you hear about this article?
You know, I saw it on Facebook, and of course you have to take everything with a grain of salt, but I start looking into these things, and obviously there is an agenda going on without a doubt. I mean, he's flushing people over here. I've never seen somebody so anxious to destroy America. I mean, honestly, Mark, it's really disturbing to watch this guy roll, and he hates Americans. I mean, you know it by the way he's allowing this to happen. No real president would allow this. So, this is a Trojan horse in motion, folks, and I hope everybody's paying attention and stop watching the Kardashians.
I remember Stuart Swerdlow saying, this was like when he was first brought in as president, when he just got elected. Stuart Swerdlow, that had to have been almost 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And Stuart Swerdlow said he was handpicked by the elite to bring America down.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, who funded his education? It was out there in Dubai, all the Saudis,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's totally entwined with them. And then basically, they groomed him. CIA has him groomed, and he's literally a Trojan horse. You try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and it's not about skin color at all. It's about what he's doing to destroy America. But he hates this country. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his wife's eyes. You can just tell he detests America. He detests what we've ever stood for here in this country, and now he's allowing it to be destroyed into a third world country. And I find it nothing but treason, quite honestly.
Well, I'm going to take us back for a little bit here to Contact Report 136. And this is kind of related again, and I don't know if the listeners remember this or not. But there was something called Operation Opera. It was also known as Operation Babylon, and it was a surprise airstrike by the Israelis that was carried out on June 7th, 1981, that destroyed a nuclear reactor under construction 17 kilometers southeast of Baghdad, Iraq. The operation was after Iran's Operation Scorched Sword that damaged the nuclear facility months before. This is another one of the prophecies. When this prophecy came out, this contact report came out around 1980, and this was one of the things that the Meyer group or Meyer said would happen. I think this information came from Semyasa. Anyway, let me read this. These insults, of course, are based on malicious lies. I'll read that later. But anyway, I have an interesting clip, and these are some Israeli jets attacking this nuclear reactor. This was in 1981.
At 3 p.m., the pilots marched onto the runway, climbed into their planes, and took off. This is the actual footage they recorded. The pilots could not communicate with each other for fear of being detected by the enemy's radar.
From the moment you go out from the briefing room, up to the moment you pull up for the attack, there is no one single word on the radio communication in order not to expose yourself on the intelligence system on the other side. So it's a kind of a silent movie, and each one with himself, with his documents in the cockpit, maps, the flying time is 1 hour 35. The location of the target was in the middle of the state of Iraq, 17 miles south of Baghdad. So the main concern wasn't the long flight of 600 miles, but the last 70 miles.
A second formation of Israeli F-15s provided cover for the F-16 bombers, ready to attack the Iraqis if they started to shoot. And then they saw the target.
Even before we pulled up from low altitude to higher altitude, one could see the walls they built.
Ironically, Saddam had built these walls to protect the reactor after the Iranian raid.
The dome was kind of a gold type. The sun was western, low angle, so when the explosion took place, the whole thing went up in the air and glistened in the setting sun. And it was just a great moment, except that there was no music.
The entire attack took 2 minutes. Now it was time to break away, quickly. Iraqi jets and missiles would certainly be launched. One by one, the Israeli pilots radioed each other they completed the mission.
90 minutes away from home, and not flying in Iraq.
The pilots, now all accounted for, braced themselves for the worst. Saddam's billion-dollar arsenal of jets and missiles in hot pursuit. But then, something inexplicable happened. Absolutely nothing. No missiles, no Iraqi jets, just a beautiful sunset all the way home. At 7 that evening, the jets landed at the base. All returned home safely. Meanwhile, back in Iraq, the devastation on the ground was evident. Dr. Hamza, who had spent 7 years building the reactor, was just a mile up the road.
Some people came out down the road, so I stopped one of the drivers. I knew him. And I said, what happened? And he said, the reactor has been bombed out by the Israelis.
Saddam demanded to know how security could allow this to happen.
Oh, he was furious. He wanted to know why this happened, and when he found out the radar was shut down, he executed the officer, and we understood a couple of sergeants with him too.
It turns out that every evening at dinner time, the Iraqi radar system was turned off.
Who told the Israelis that exactly at 6, every day, the radar stations are turned off, so that they came at 6:25 and bombed out the reactor.
The raid was a success. The reactor was destroyed, leaving Saddam Hussein's nuclear dreams in ruin.
So Semyase told Billy that the Israelis would destroy this reactor. Billy got this information in October of 1980. And basically, I'll read quickly what it says here in the contact notes. Already planned crime, namely to lead a warlike offensive blow under the pretense of defense against the nation of Iraq, whereby somewhere during the time between June 7th and June 9th, 1981, the nation of Iraq will be criminally attacked and bombed by the Israeli Air Force, whereby their target of destruction will be an atomic power plant under construction. So, anyway, that's one of the other prophecies in Contact 136. I do want to give credit where credit is due again to remind everyone that Solaris will be with Brent Holland on Night Fright, which is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern on Studio B, so tune in at freedomslips.com. And if I've got enough energy, I'm going to try to do several shows of this nature this week. Anyway, so what else do we have here of interest on the Meyer front? It also talks in this contact about Ayatollah Khomeini and the American hostages. And in line 212 it says, in particular, Reagan will become unforgiving towards Iran when he is informed more precisely about the fact that the U.S. hostages in Tehran had to suffer under an intense torture. I don't know if I ever was able to upload this one or not, but no, I don't see it. I'll have to look a little bit harder in a minute, but so anyway, that's basically the overview of some of the prophecies. The other prophecy that we talked about last night was the prophecy that John Lennon would be killed during that same year, which he was. He was shot by the guy named Chapman, which also occurred. This contact report also talks about Diana being killed. I don't remember, that may not have happened until the 1990s, but it talks about Lady Diana being murdered as well. And this is a little, I don't know, it just stirs a lot of history, talking about these contacts and all the things that will happen or have happened. It's very interesting when you look back on this sort of thing. Solaris, what did you think about? Had you ever heard of that attack on that nuclear reactor before?
No, it's very interesting. Yeah, I find it very fascinating how the Meyer material correlates with everything. It's incredible. So, yeah, I hadn't heard that one before. So, yeah.
Well, that's one of my favorite. I've known about that for a long time. That's like a real classic military strike. I'm very interested in the fighter jets and the technology and that sort of stuff associated with a lot of this. So and the Israelis are such good pilots. They're tremendously skilled pilots. So anyway, much going on there. It's different to look at the Meyer material from this perspective, from just the perspective of prophecy and things like that, which I think it's interesting to do that. Now, usually I'm looking at it from the history point of view, and also from the spiritual teachings. But this gives you a different perspective on things, and it gives you a kind of an idea for the intensity of things and the way things are ramping up right now.
Right, preparation. Yeah, and it's interesting. He's been spot on. So why wouldn't he be in the future? And what's happening now. I mean, he's been correct about everything.
I know.
That's what disturbs me. He's like, this whole thing is just unraveling before our eyes.
It really, really is. And you've heard Frosty then before, right? Talk about population.
He's wonderful.
Well, I've always wondered. I'm relatively new to studying the whole issue of population and population control and that sort of thing. And the Meyer material just goes on and on and on about it all the time, how important it is. And of course the alternative community always says, well, that's just eugenics and that's just the elite trying to kill us off. So I've had to do a little research, and what people will always say is, there's so much space. There's enough space, you could fit almost the whole world in Texas if you wanted to. But, I don't really think it's an issue of space. Because, we have 4.5 million square miles in the South Pole, in Antarctica, where people could go. And there's just millions of square miles on our oceans. But those are very difficult places to live. And people are not going to accumulate in those very, very difficult places to live. No, they go to the moderate areas with the forests. And we're losing our forests now. And our forests are what moderate the weather. The forests keep it from, for example, flooding. The forests, they absorb tremendous amounts of fluid, of water. They also create shade, so they stop the soil from getting too hot and too dried out. So it moderates the weather. I think these vast forests also stop the intensity of the winds, these storms from getting out of hand. So I think now that our forests are being destroyed, we're seeing this more and more intense weather.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, where I live, I have 13 acres here I live off of, and I'll tell you point blank, I mean, the trees are all dying, Mark. I noticed this, I walked the property, and I noticed that every single pine tree is getting very sick and is starting to die. These are trees that have been here for, 30 to 50 years, and all of a sudden they're dying, and some of it's beetle kill, but we haven't had much of a drought, and we had that flood last year, right? But I'll tell you, man, there's something going on, and I'm wondering if it's not. I know that pine trees absorb radiation, and I'm really starting to wonder if that's not part of it.
Wow.
So, yeah, because I've noticed the pine trees are really suffering. It's not the aspens, the pines. So, yeah, it's so good. I mean, this whole world is just, it's like it's imploding right in front of us. And I'm not trying to sound like gloom and doom. This is an observation, but it's a very sad observation,
It's not gloom and doom. It's just the way it is.
Right. I mean, I wish it was a beautiful little, fairy tale world, but it's just not like that right now.
And it seems to be more focused on the west and on the center of the country, at least right now. Right now, thank God I've been spared some of this. I mean, it's still beautiful here. We still got our trees. We still got our wildlife, and let's hope, people are listening to shows like this. That's hope. People are paying attention, so maybe we can turn this thing around. I want to go back to this whole Ayatollah Khomeini and the American hostages thing. I have a little clip on that. Let's play a few minutes of this clip. It may have a little dead air here in the beginning. There we go.
This man changed the world. He took Iran and made it an inspiration for a new, uncompromising strand of Islam.
Our bosses couldn't cope with the idea of an 80-year-old Ayatollah, which they didn't even know what an Ayatollah was, who lived on garlic and onions and yogurt, directing a revolution that was about to topple America's most important ally.
His Iran broke all the rules of diplomacy. It unleashed forces the West still cannot handle. It has undermined the West's hold on the Middle East.
Iran is deliberately causing maximum problems. Iran is a threat to world peace.
I will do everything in my power to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Everything in my power.
آمریکا و انگلیس رو نگاه بکنید. هر جا دیکتاتوری و ترور و آدمکشی است، دست اونها در کاره.
This series tells the inside story of how for 30 years Iran has baffled and defeated Western leaders. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini spent 14 years banished from his native Iran. From neighboring Iraq, he waged a holy war against the Shah of Iran. In the autumn of 1978, Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, presented the Shah with a startling choice.
وقتی که جریان سالیانه سازمان ملل بود، وزیر خارجه عراق با وزیر خارجه ما علی خسرو افسار صحبت کرده بود و پیامی از صدام داشت. در این پیامی بود که اگر که بخواید این رو از اینجا به خارج میفرستیم و همینطور اگر که علاقمند باشید حتی باید الیمیت بشه.
The Shah was cautious.
In those days we thought that if somebody gets rid of Khomeini, he will become like a martyr and he become even greater.
Mohammad Reza Pahlavi had ruled Iran for almost 40 years.
شاهنشاه‌ها کشور شاهنشاهی ایران به مردم این سرزمین باستانی.
He lived in a world apart from his people. He was kept in power by a vicious security service and the fifth largest army on Earth, equipped with American weaponry. He ignored calls for democracy. He let the nation's vast oil wealth go only to the few. He promoted Western culture, enraging millions of Muslims. Many groups resented the Shah. They came together under Khomeini's banner.
چه اونها که تمایلات مذهبی داشتن در دین امام خواستهای خودشون برآورده می‌کردن، اونهایی هم که نه دیدگاه آزادی خواهانه داشتن ولو لایک، گروه‌های سیاسی زیادی بودن، باز هم در امام به عنوان چهره مبارز، یک رهبر مبارز نیرومند که همه مردم تو صدور خودش بسیج کرده، شخصیتی می‌دیدن که میتونن در حمایت از او قام بردارن برای آزادی کشورشون.
The Shah's government banned public gatherings. During one rally in Tehran, troops shot more than 100 demonstrators.
منتظر بودیم که پیام امام بیاد و اون پیام حضرت امام که منتشر شد، گفتن حضرت امام فرموده که کسی خیابونا رو ترک نکنه، از همونجا دیگه تا پیروزی انقلاب دیگه مردم تو خیابون بودن اصلا.
From Iraq, Imam Khomeini was causing havoc in Iran. The Shah declined Saddam's offer to kill him, but agreed to his being expelled. Khomeini sought refuge in Kuwait.
Anyway, Solaris, what do you think of all this? I mean, what do you see happening in this country?
Well, if we go on the course we're on, I mean, it's obvious that it's a self-destruct sequence, and that we're losing our country. We're losing it to foreign investors. We've lost it to illegals. We've lost it to people coming over here that shouldn't be here, that hate Americans, that hate American women, that hate the power of multidimensional consciousness. I mean, there's a war against good and evil here, and right now you're seeing it. It's permeating all over the planet. I mean, the UK is out of control. Scotland's trying to get, their own independence, and obviously, I don't know if you saw that article on the voting, but that's all about fraud and how they've been screwed over insofar as, voting fraud going on over there. So who knows if it's even accurate insofar as Scotland being, breaking away from the UK, which I wish Scotland would, to be honest. So but we're in some dark times. Go ahead.
I was on a show with Alfred Weber yesterday. It's called Enemy Within Radio, and a couple guys from the UK. And Alfred was saying that the global elite have recently discovered a giant oil reservoir, underneath the sea out there right off the coast of Scotland. And they didn't make that public until like 2 days after the vote was done. And the big thing about, one of the big reasons for some people for voting no for Scotland's independence was because they didn't think they'd have enough financial strength to be independent. But if they didn't know about this giant oil reservoir or whatever, in the ocean out there off the coast of Scotland or whatever. So it's just another example of the global elite just mucking with things, and so it'd be interesting.
Well, I didn't catch on. I'm sorry, but Spirit provides. I mean, the universe provides. People are going to have to learn how to just kind of roll up their sleeves and move on and break away from these big banks, these big banks and these big corporations, and just break orbit. I mean, literally, we're going to have to start over again, and otherwise, you're just going to be slaves. I mean, which one is it really? Is that what everybody wants on this world? That's where it's going.
What do you think? In my mind's eye, I see overpopulation and just people streaming into this country.
Totally.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, not only do I see that, but I also see a civil war breaking out, and I also see a lot of terrorism, a lot of people coming over who hate Americans, like I said. You've got the Muslim extremists that are coming over here trying to, push their agenda, which means going after anybody and everyone. But I have news for them. The American people won't tolerate that, and we'll take them down. I don't have a problem saying that. So the bottom line is it's going to get ugly and probably very bloody. But it's really sad because this diverts our psychic energy. This diverts our multidimensional energy. I mean, you and I both know we're star beings. I mean, we can work on higher levels of consciousness, but now we have to dive into this ugly world because they're invading our territory. We can't get away from these people. So we have to stand up and fight, Mark. It's true.
Frosty was saying that in Africa, in some places in Africa, the women will have 8 children, and only 6. They'll have 8 children, and only 2 of them will live. So it's normal for 6 out of 8 children to die shortly, not that long after birth. I suppose maybe at a year or 2 they starve. They just starve. And this goes on a regular basis in Africa. So we don't really have an idea of what things are like in other parts of the world. But I think we're going to get an education pretty quick here.
Well, unfortunately, they don't learn when they come over here. They bring their bad, patterns and their behavioral patterns and their false belief systems, and they try to, throw it in everybody's face, and they call it discrimination or racism when we don't comply with their illusion. But that's the problem we're going to be running into, is that they're not stepping up. They're stepping into and taking away from the people who work very hard in this country, and that's not okay, and that's not appropriate.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be a real education. From one perspective, I'm kind of excited about some of the people that I'm getting to come on the show, like Frosty Woolridge, and there's another guy I'm getting on, Robert Steele. He's ex-CIA, guy who's come out. He's an insider's insider, and we're going to
you might want to get Chip Tatum. I don't know if you've interviewed him or not.
No,
He's
I
one
don't
to
know.
get for sure. Oh, I'll put you in touch with him.
Yeah.
Well, he's an insider, literally. He used to do a lot of interesting things and work for the senior Bush administration. So, the Daddy Bush. Yeah, he can tell you big-time stuff. He's a very interesting man. So I'll put you in touch with him, and I know he'd be happy to be on your show. He's also affiliated with Veterans Today.
Is he? I've also sent a message out to Dennis Camino. Have you heard of Dennis Camino yet? He's another one.
Sounds familiar.
Veterans Today, another guy that's come out. He talks a lot. Yeah, he talks a lot about Sandy Hook and Fukushima, and very, very interesting guy. So I'm looking forward to getting some of these other people. You had sent me that link to that really interesting Navy SEAL.
Right.
And, what was his name? Ben something?
I can't remember the last name. Do you need the link again? I can hunt it down for you.
No.
Yeah.
I've got the MP3. For some reason, it's not uploaded.
Good. Right. He's awesome, isn't he?
He was a very interesting guy.
Well, he was spot on. And there are a lot of people who are fired up and frustrated right now because, when you work really hard in a country you love and that your ancestors fought for and defended, and then you're here working hard and you're trying to, be a good person and have a good life, and then people sabotage it that, we can't babysit the White House. We can't babysit Congress. We can't babysit all these people that are basically paid off by the highest bidder. And it's unfortunate because now that we haven't been babysitting them and working our own surveillance on them, they're literally out of control. So that's really sad to watch that in motion.
Well, I'll probably be back a little bit later on in the week. I got to put some more material together. I think it's important to keep these shows going. I really like your input, Solaris. Thanks for coming on these past couple of days.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you letting me come on here and talk about this stuff. Yeah, and I'm happy to join you again. So,
thank you very much. And again, you'll be on tomorrow night at Studio
8
B.
p.m.
8 p.m.
Yeah, with Brent Holland, and then of course the following week in Hyperspace, I'm going to have Stuart Swerdlow on. He's going to be my special guest. So, yes, just that you were mentioning him. Yeah, that should be good.
Funny. All right, Solaris. I want to thank all the folks in the chat room. Thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate you guys and appreciate you, Solaris. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys later in the week. Have a good week.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.